Hey folks, everything new under the sun. It is Sunday, June 25th, 2023. What 24 and 36 hours that have passed. Wow. A lot of things going on. And so here's my commentary on what has happened. So Prigozhin, he made a deal. Apparently Lukashenko of Belarus made a deal with Putin and came to an agreement that Prigozhin would be let go, all charges dropped, and Prigozhin would be able to go to Belarus and I guess live happily ever after. Although big famous people like that don't just disappear. If Prigozhin and the mercenary group, Wagner group, Wagner, if you want to pronounce it that way, if they turn back and stop the offensive against Moscow, Russia, Putin's government. And interestingly, this is what occurred. Apparently, Prigozhin presumably is on his way. I don't know. But it's interesting. And some say, CIA was behind it. It would have been a great, counteroffensive if that was the kind of the shush sort of counteroffensive that they had been planning. If, for example, the United States had basically outbid Russia for control of the Wagner group and kind of turned them around and said, look, we'll give you more than Putin's paying you to go against Ukraine if you turn around and go against Russia. So I don't know if that's part of it. I think truth is going to come out over the next couple of days and weeks. But interesting. And Prigozhin's, not going to jail. He's not dead yet. But is Putin going to let him go and go to Belarus? Because Belarus is very, in the pocket of Russia, certainly. So it's a friendly state. So you would think if this was real, that Putin certainly would still try and take him out because he's a very dangerous person. Prigozhin is. But this also served to really determine who was on Putin's side, who was loyal to Putin in terms of the Ministry of Defense, and maybe who was interested in getting rid of Putin, because this was the opportunity for Russians to jump on board with a big army and go against Putin. And then as quickly as this turned around, apparently the mercenaries didn't keep going. Prigozhin immediately, called it off. And so anybody who would have said, what, I'll support this, I'm going to die under Putin anyways, might as well try and get my freedom. Well, now Putin knows exactly who those, from Putin's point of view, turncoats, he knows exactly who those are who were not loyal to Putin's government. And so they will be tagged and probably rounded up actually at this point. So there's a lot of things that could be in favor of Putin here, although it is seen by the world as destabilizing. Okay, so into the news. That's kind of the summary of what happened. U.S. intelligence officials knew well in advance that the Wagner Group head Evgeny Prigozhin was planning to mount an armed rebellion. So U.S. is coming out after the fact and saying, yeah, we knew this was going to happen all the time. Congressional leaders were briefed prior to Saturday's event, so the intelligence was there. They knew what was happening. You have to believe that they have intelligence, digital communications that were collected, or moles in Prigozhin, or these operations. Those people don't keep quiet really. They're not particularly professional exactly, so there's probably lots of holes in that. It's funny that Russia wouldn't know that this was coming either. And it's funny that Russia and the security services wouldn't have preempted this. You would think they did, and maybe they did in some way, but it didn't look that way when they were at in the city. What's the something Don? I forget the name of it. But it didn't look like the Russian military was really on guard and ready for this. The column, the military column of hardware coming up the highways was kind of let through in many ways. There wasn't a lot of fighting. A couple of helicopters went down, but it's strange, and I don't know if it's real or fake, but certainly strange, and strange how quickly this turned around, where Prigozhin apparently just turned tail and said, oh, I got to preserve myself, I'm going to get out of here, and basically sell out all his mercenaries to the Ministry of Defense in Russia, where all the mercenaries had to sign contracts with the Russian military at that point. So I don't know if Prigozhin's out of a job, whether he still has control. But the whole situation is very, very curious. I don't know what the U.S. knows. It would have made a lot of sense if the U.S. was planning this, and there has been precedent that the United States and the CIA had been involved in prior sorts of attempts. It says the information shows that the United States was aware of impending events in Russia, similar to how intelligence agencies had been warned in late 2021 that Putin was planning to invade Ukraine. But unlike the case of those prior invasion warnings, U.S. administration stayed silent ahead of the dramatic Wagner events. Now, them staying silent, that could go either way. Either they, were just letting things unfold and didn't want Russia to get the upper hand because they planned it, or they paid for it, or whatever, or maybe they just had no association at all, and they were just hoping that this would be a great distraction for Russia and further weaken Putin. Hands off by secret services, but basically they didn't say anything. While it was not clear, it says, but let's see. So they were hoping to destabilize the Russian state and negatively impact Russian operations in Ukraine. So far, there's been little evidence to suggest that the whole short-lived mutiny by the Wagner Group led to significant Ukrainian gains. So we haven't even heard of anything they've done on the front lines. So that's interesting. Going down here, this is a tweet by Clandestine. It says, Russian MFA released a rather peculiar statement right as the Wagner hysteria was coming to a close. Russia called it U.S.-led sponsored wars and brought up past failed CIA black ops, such as the Bay of Pigs. Are the Russian government hinting that they just foiled another CIA stunt? So did the U.S. have involvement? Did they back this? Did they pay for it? Did they encourage it? Were they the highest bidder to Prigozhin and the mercenaries who, they're just in it for the power and the prestige and the money. I don't think they're loyal in any particular way. So could the CIA have pushed them in that direction? And maybe starting it, if that was the case, Prigozhin got far enough that he had accepted all the money from the United States, and at that point he said, I wasn't really going to go with the United States, and so he made a deal with Putin at that point. Maybe they knew it all along, and it was all orchestrated. But certainly Moscow now has a lot of military hardware, in the city. Air defenses. It was a great opportunity to trigger martial law, and so far as I know, currently martial law effectively is in place, and a lot of rules there that you can't break, otherwise you're going to be fined or arrested. So this could be set up and a great disguise for the securing of Moscow and military equipment into places before panic sets in from possibly maybe a NATO strike, or maybe a preemptive strike by Moscow and Russia on NATO members. They wouldn't want to have to play the catch-up game and get control of their own citizens should World War III break out. So again, you got to look at it from that point of view. There's good reasons and bad reasons. They use this to move a lot of military hardware under the guise that Russia was involved in a coup. And potentially Putin was going to go down. But now they have all their cities and all their citizens under control, much better for the event of a catastrophe or an absolute emergency situation. So what is the Bay of Pigs? Well, this is Britannica.com actually. And this is the Bay of Pigs was specific to Cuba. Now they mention so Bay of Pigs 1961, you can see in there in the middle of the tweet. Saigon 1975, Kabul 2021, and Kiev coming soon. So that's interesting. And you can see the images there. Saigon 1975 with the helicopter on the government buildings, and then Kabul 2021 with the helicopter trying to rescue citizens on another government building. But the Bay of Pigs. So within 6 months of Castro's overthrow of Fulgencio Batista's dictatorship, relations between Castro government and the United States began to deteriorate. The new Cuban government confiscated private property, much of it owned by North American interests. So the United States had some skin in the game. They had some private property there. And so the Secret Services wanted to get involved in that. And so what happened? Well, it says an invasion of Cuba had been planned. Kind of sounds like the coup that was starting to take place, doesn't it? It had been planned by the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, since May 1960. The wisdom of proceeding with the invasion had been debated within the newly inaugurated administration of President John F. Kennedy. And as you know, RFK, of course, is running for as a candidate for president of the United States in the Democrat Party. Interesting. So newly inaugurated President John F. Kennedy before it was finally approved and carried out. So we have similar situations, and people are aware of this. Putin is aware of what happened, what the involvement the United States has gotten into, the fomenting of war and invasions and coups in the past to move along their geopolitical goals, and so that could be what we're seeing here, and why the United States wasn't interested in saying anything to Russia, even though they're coming out and saying we knew this in advance. So talking about Russia and Moscow, specifically Red Square, a beefed-up military presence in the major cities and in the south of Russia remained throughout the weekend. Moscow's iconic Red Square has stayed closed throughout Sunday with extra security measures in place. Now, the kicker is going to be whether this stays in place, and just, in perpetuity over the next number of days, because I think, they're waiting for Prigozhin and mercenaries to get out of town to make sure are going along with the agreement. But will this military presence stay in place? Will this martial law sort of situation and the fortress, whatever they called it, will that stay in place for what could be coming up? And, it's all speculation. And someone mentioned in the comments, you're doing a lot of speculating. Well, yeah, we all are. We're hearing propaganda and narrative, misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, whatever you want to label it, on both sides. We don't know what the truth is. Even people on the ground probably don't know what the truth is. And I'm sure Putin doesn't know what the truth is ultimately in the minds of, the various generals under his control in the mercenary group. So yeah, we're speculating. We're looking at the news and saying, what could this mean? What could the 4D chess move be next that they're working with? And is the United States playing 4D chess? There's smart people on both sides. You have to consider that they're probably all playing 4D chess and kind of wargaming particular scenarios and saying, if we pushed in this direction, what direction would they go in? And if we funded this group, what would happen and what would be the consequences for us and that sort of stuff. So, we don't always know what's happening, and we kind of have to look at this and take it with a grain of salt and look at what's happened in the past. Again, with the idea of this Bay of Pigs situation, these are the sorts of things that you look at and leaders know of and say, look, in the past, this has happened. So could it be happening again? And the history repeats itself. That's what the Jews say. That's their traditional saying, that pattern equals prophecy. So if you see a pattern, a historical list of things that are happening and have happened, all kind of similar, again, Bay of Pigs, Saigon, Kabul, maybe Kiev next, and that's prophecy. So if something's happened in the past and multiple times, it's probably going to happen in the future in some fashion somewhere. So here's kind of the wrap of it. A rambling infantryman said, they knew it all the time, of course, after seeing 12 hours of propaganda insinuating the FSB was defecting. Putin was flying away in a bunker. Moscow was about to be taken. Multiple helicopters taken out. Terrible psyop, he said, cost $6.2 billion, and I guess that's referring to the accounting error that the Pentagon made a second time, looking at the price of the hardware that they gave Ukraine, right? So it says, meanwhile, with Prigozhin headed into exile, quote unquote, in neighboring Belarus. Is he really in exile? What else was agreed to? Is this just all a scam? For the media, for media consumption, and for military consumption. To think that Putin's weakened, and in fact maybe this is organized all the time. I don't know. There's probably a lot of different things going on that we don't know. So Lukashenko mediated the ceasefire apparently. Speculation still abounds over the confusing situation, and that's really the words I was using as well. And several dominant theories have emerged. What's clear is that President Putin took the matter very seriously. I think for Putin, it appeared on video at least, and many agree that he was taking it seriously. So maybe it wasn't you know, something that he had organized or set up, unless he is a very good actor. But Putin said that he keeps the situation of the special operation under control around the clock. So this is the link to all the various suggestions of what could be going up on. So the charges were dropped against Prigozhin. He will leave Russia for Belarus. The Wagner fighters who didn't take part in the uprising will sign contracts with the Ministry of Defense. So they are now required to sign contracts with Russia, and not with, I guess not with the Wagner group anymore. Wagner fighters who did take part are not being charged, interestingly. No word on potential Ministry of Defense leadership changes, to let this go as far as it did, if indeed it was kind of a real event that Prigozhin did lead. But I would suggest if he did lead that, then he's going to be in the targets of Russia for a while. So very, very interesting situation there. And again, we don't know the truth of it. I think the truth will come out. But there you go. That's kind of the latest on the situation. But that was a whirlwind. 24 hours happening there. Very, very interesting. And again, I'm going to start watching for the news as to who had a piece of this, and what part was planned or fake or organized, orchestrated in such a way, and what's Prigozhin's war or purpose going forward? What's he going to do? He's in exile in Belarus, where all Putin's nuclear weapons, or a lot of nuclear weapons, have been stationed. So does Putin think Prigozhin is not a threat anymore? I don't know. And again, I think Prigozhin is going to go to the highest bidder in terms of money and power and prestige. So if the U.S. comes out and says, we'll give you more money, this could all happen again. But it's yet to be seen whether Prigozhin has any power or has any men under him at this point. So I'll leave it there, guys. Thanks for watching. We will stay on top of this, and we'll see you guys in the next video.